Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Reptile Rejects. This week's going to be a little bit different again. It's going to be myself as your host, Nick Cavano, and I'm bringing on again Shan Melanson to take over for Mike. Mike has had other engagements to take care of, but lucky for us, Shan's always there to pick up the slack, even last minute when it was only a few hours before that I asked him. So, as well, our guest was supposed to come, but that ended up not happening for tonight. So, we're just going to throw it a bit around, talk a bit with Shan, maybe get a little bit of his story for the first 15, 20 minutes. And then I think him and I are going to do a show just on a breeding show on breeding pythons. So, Shan, how have you been, man? How's your week?
Pretty good. Just back at work now, getting over this cold, but doing much better. Things over here are pretty good. Still having a hard time with the Brettles and the Inlands eating on their own, but I got a few of them going, so I'm optimistic. The Bandit Kings are doing really good. From all the podcasts I've read, they're pretty hard to get going. But with what I have, been pretty good. Everything else, though, is eating pretty darn good. As you know, right now is the time where, you're getting out of the summer and ramping up for that breeding season, making sure your animals are in good shape for that and getting them up to a little bit, a little fluffier, I guess, if you want to call it that way, and ready to for the breeding cycle.
Very nice, very nice. And your king snakes there, how many clutches, how many babies did you have this year?
I think the first batch I had 9 good ones, and then in the last one I only had 4 that were good. I had a stillborn, and then I had to put one down because it was pretty kinked up, and I don't want to keep that, unfortunately. So, so second clutch, smaller babies. First clutch, much bigger babies. Got them on pinky mice, like pinheads. They're all on frozen thawed, so I didn't have to do any live or any techniques or anything like that, and they took off pretty well. And from what I hear from most people, as soon as they get a few meals in them and they get going, it's just wham bam, thank you, ma'am.
Very nice, very nice. So I'm thinking of it before we start the whole breeding python thing. Is not a lot of people know you. Actually, it's funny because we haven't done a show on myself or on Michael yet. We always told ourselves we're going to do it later on whenever we have a guest cancel last minute or something. But today I figured let's talk a bit about you. So why don't you give us about your origin story there? Where'd you come from? How did your
So it's kind of funny. I had given a kind of a clue to you and Michael about doing a 3-way kind of 2 of you guys interview one person and then we interview the next person and doing that anyway. But this is awesome. Thank you for that. So I was different. I wasn't that one kid that always liked snakes. It took me. So you got to understand when you're younger, they don't have a lot of TV or anything like nature shows about snakes. You didn't have the internet or anything like that. You got to understand, I'm 51 now, right? So in those days, they didn't have that kind of stuff. So limited access to information. So, when you see a snake when you were a kid, you were always taught in the past, it was like, it's bad, it's bad. So it took me a little while to understand actual snakes, to where my cousin actually had snakes. And I went over for a visit to his place. And he had 2 snakes. So he had an Everglades rat snake, a fully grown Everglades rat snake. So it's almost like a yellow rat snake, but really big, 6 feet, really nice and thick, mean, mean. And then your docile ball python. But this ball python was wild caught. So it had all the It still did the ball thing, very not something that you see as much now, but the real big like ball python is known for the ball, right? The wild caught. So you saw that. So I kind of learned from him certain things, and I kept coming over and learning it, and he'd teach me certain things, and then I'd go to the library and stuff like that, and just then I was kind of in my early teens, so I was driving at the time, so I'd go over to his place and stuff. And then also at that time, I was still going to school, so co-op was a thing in my time. Like early time was just coming out, and those kind of times is, hey, do you want to go work somewhere, right? So the first time I went and worked for the forensic RCMP, but then my second semester, I decided to work at a pet store. So in Orleans or Saint Laurent area in Canada, Ottawa, there was this pet mart right beside Big Al's, and a pretty big pet store. And so I started doing basically co-op for them, and I wasn't in the snake department right off the bat. You're not doing the good stuff, you're always doing the bad stuff, co-op student. So was taking care of the birds, so learning a lot about the animals. But in my free time, when I had time, there was this really cool guy that I met there, and he knew all about snakes, right? um, Probably not the good influence, but when it came to snakes, he knew his stuff. So we became friends, and that's where it really took off, because when I went to his house, he just had all kinds of stuff like boa constrictors and Burmese pythons and this and that, and the information that flowed. And I would drive him home, right? And it was like a 40-minute drive home. So you have that conversation with them. And I learned a lot of working with hots with him. He did have some hots; they were illegal, and in those times, it didn't matter. We all hid our snakes because we were always worried about that neighbor that would rat you out for even the legal snake. They would be like, "There's a snake next door, can't have it," and then you have the bylaw at your door, and you could lose your snake. So most people stayed quiet on those kind of things. So that was my first part of my teens. And so after the co-op, I did such a great job, I guess. They hired me as a regular employee, and I just kept learning and learning. And my passion kind of flourished from there. I got things given to me at the pet store. This guy that I worked with at the pet store gave me a lot of stuff when he couldn't take care of it, or he was going through some bad relationships. I'd have to take care of some of his animals. Some examples were two big size breeding Burmese python, like a 13-foot female and an 18-foot Burmese in my bathroom. And, as much as people would think, oh my gosh, that's scary. They were big snakes. They just stayed in the bathroom. I could easily take a shower, no problem. You just, keep an eye out, and then you go and do your thing. And then, in those days, I would say, yeah, acceptable. Nowadays, I would be like, yeah, probably not the right way of keeping them. Um, but, they eventually got better homes. I saw them breeding. They weren't my snakes. I was just keeping them. But just, I had the opportunity to be able to work with those kind of snakes. It was pretty awesome. Yeah, I did some breeding. So at 19, I had some boas. That was my first time of attempting breeding. So I had some boas, and I sold those. I was, I was so happy, right? Yeah. I had Burmese. I had albino Burmese python at one point. Like, for those days, that was pretty unique animal. So, but you know, um, I was pretty young and not established in life. Didn't have my kids at the time. And then when that all happened, I met uh, my ex and everything, and I had kids. I started kind of giving away some of my animals, concentrated on that, but I still had the passion and everything. And then a little later on, so when I got into about, I'd say around 2005, I bought my own house, and then I started acquiring animals. So by 2006, I had some Brazilians I acquired from somebody that worked at Lil Ray's. Um, and by the way, Lil Ray's used to come to our pet store way, way before Lil Ray's even existed. That's another story for another day, but that was pretty cool. So I've no
For the
call.
people who don't know who Little Ray's is, it's the local reptile zoo here, which is one that I worked at for a good decade when I was much, much younger. But keep going, Chan.
Yeah. Paul is awesome. Go way back. Are you a wealth full of knowledge at this point, but at those days, he was trying to get just as much information as everybody else, right? And so for our information in those days was the Reptile magazine was the big thing, right? We were always subscribing to the Reptile magazine. It cost a little bit of money, but that was the way to stay informed in those days, right? Because you didn't have the internet, and I worked in a pet store, so it was kind of handy to have the pet store because I was able to see what I was able to order from certain um, places, right? And I had availability to that because the boss would, and I'd be like, "Hey, can you get that for me?" And we'd kind of like pitch in and do a bigger order. So that was kind of nice, right? Um, but yeah, no, but getting back to 2006 when I got my house, I got Brazilians, and then I really started getting into that. And then I got a few animals here and there. Um, but then I was I don't know, for some reason, Kijiji, right? Didn't know anywhere else. Like, that was the internet for me. I don't even know if Facebook was around, but you go to Kijiji and you get certain animals. And so these guys had carpet pythons. So I got my first coastal carpet python. So I'm not totally sure if it was like, it looked very coastal, but I can't prove that it was 100% pure coastal line, right? Um, Huge snake, great snake. I had that. I kind of fell in love with it. Built the tank for it and everything. Not like these PVC tanks, we do stupid kind of cages with made out of wood and make them nice and heavy. Um, and then I got into more pythons, and I got into a jag, and I kept the jag for a little while, and then I bred those together. I did my corn snake phase too for a little while with the kids. That was kind of fun. So the kids were still kind of somewhat young, but not too young, more in their early teens, but maybe 12. So they were still interested in that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, I was all over the place. But I bred the coastal and the jag, and I had a clutch of those. Um, and then after that, things got, I had a few other types of snakes. I bred the Brazilians quite a few times. I was doing really well with that. I kept those around forever, which I still have one left. The original female I'll keep forever. She's a pet. And I just work decided that they were moving to Prescott, Ontario. Johnstown was where they wanted to establish. So I went with the company. They gave me a great offer. So sold the house I had there, came down here and established down here. And there's a lot less rules, so it's awesome. Much better than Ottawa. And at that time when that was all happening, I just was starting. So yes, I did do the YouTube and I did learn about Brandon, but then I started learning a little bit about Facebook, and my wife, which is almost 10 years younger than I am, helps me out with all this kind of good stuff, and got me into this like kind of like Facebook group where I could advertise my snakes and talk to people with the same kind of passion that I have. And the rule was just I would just want you to advertise anything reptile related. That was the only rule. And all of a sudden I got this message from this guy, Dominic, and just kept wanting to message me all the time and get to know me. And so, like I said, we all want to keep private because we don't want people kind of in your business and then being like, you get the jealous neighbor or the jealous whatever, and something happens. So I'm kind of a person that keeps to myself. I'm doing better nowadays.
Just so
Um,
you don't make me look too much like a stalker, just so everybody knows, there was basically nobody that kept snakes around me, right? Ottawa's a city of about 1 million people. And then all of a sudden, I saw this one guy that was keeping the same Morella species, all the same snakes as me. So I'm like, fuck, man, I want to know who this is. I want to see what his collection is and all that. It was all of a sudden like you feel like you're the only one on the planet keeping this. And then you find out somebody about an hour away from you is keeping the same shit as you are. So yeah, of course, I started messaging him. I'm like, we should meet. Let's see what you got. Anyway, keep going.
yeah, so I was like, oh, he's messaged me a whole bunch of times and he's really persistent. And I talked to the wife and I'm like, should I? Like, he seems like a nice guy. All right, I'll invite him over, but like, if it gets out of hand, help me out. Help me out, honey. We'll kick him out of the house. And anyway, so he came over and we really like kind of hit it off. Like, we had, he was just like the passion we both had, both the same interests, and then we were kind of teaching off each other certain things. And he was talking about carpet python, morella talk, and I'm just like, oh wow, like this guy. And then I'm like, you have that, and I'm like, wow, well I have this, and it's like it kind of almost came from the same place because in those days, like we all know, Don was the big guy, right? He was the guy who I kind of looked up to in those days. Where I'm going to go get a carpet python was Don Patterson at the time, for sure. I mean, it's the way I see it. um,
Yeah, agreed.
right? So, yeah, and then we just from there, I think what we do, like we kind of wanted to do a breeding project together. I kind of brought it up. I thought I had a nice het exanthic female, and he had a exanthic jag, and I'm like, hey, let's see where this goes. Let's trust each other, and we trusted each other. And at first we're like, well, and obviously the person with the better snake has the first choice and all that. And I'm like, hey, I'm all good with that. Let's just do it. I just want to do it. And yeah, it just took off from there. And then the next year we're like, how about we do this? And then we got better snakes. I remember getting, what was it? So I had a few zebra clutches that were going, and I was getting into the super zebra. So I was starting to get into the super zebra at that time. But I think I got a caramel exanthic jag from Don Patterson, and that thing was beautiful at the time. Pretty darn expensive, but nice male, and yeah, don't have it anymore. But it's a great snake. All great starts to like the whole collection we have, right? But then I saw that Dom had a lot of stuff that was like jungle, and then he did a pairing of the NBK male with Favol line, and we hit some great looking snakes. And so just so everybody knows how I get these great awesome snakes from Dom is because I also have rats. So that's another thing that we had to deal. So if we're gonna kind of pair up together, I said I'd help you out. So Dom and I kind of go together on the rats and everything. So I produce everything for both clutches or both collections. Sorry. And then have a little extra paid bills and stuff, and electrical bills and food bills. But overall, two collections, so that's quite a lot of work there. But then in hand, it, no money exchanges, just like, hey, here you go. I get pick of whatever litter or whatever clutch there is, and it's awesome. Um, and then you get these great snakes, and then that's where I got some of my uh, great jungle line. So the ocelot and favil line all came from you, my 2020 stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely been a good relationship for that kind of stuff. I mean, we've both benefited greatly. You're a friend. I think it's been over a decade now, and I think it's kind of cool. A lot of people out there have like their reptile buddy that they bounce everything off, and a lot of the things we keep are very similar. And for people, when we first initially started actually wanting to do this podcast, initially it was supposed to be me and Shan that was going to do it. The problem is, Shan and I are both pretty dumb when it comes to computers, and both of us couldn't
Old,
figure out how to.
old.
Sure, let's go with old and dumb. Um, so we both really didn't know how to do it. And when Mike came across and offered it to me, and he's like, "I'll take care of everything. You just need to be there and just chat." I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." Of course, I felt bad because I wanted to
Excuse
do it
me.
with Shan initially, but I told him the deal was that if ever we're missing, if somebody's missing, Shan takes over. So that's kind of where he came from. And my other thing too was that well, Shan and I both have similar interests, very similar collection, because anything I want, I get from him, and vice versa, right? And I thought it would always be better to have two completely different persons, right? For hosts, like an old guy with a young guy, a guy into Python, a guy into colubrids, and boas. And the fact that Michael and I were so different, I thought it was better. I feel like if it was me and Shan doing it all the time, we'd both be talking about the same thing, and our knowledge is very similar. So, um, I thought the other way around is great, but I love having Shan. So thanks a lot for your story. It's pretty different, pretty cool. Is Before we move on to the actual breeding there, why don't you tell people about what size collection do you have? What Morelia and other things do you have? Maybe a quick glimpse of your collection.
That's one of the worst questions, eh?
I know
That's the
you don't
hard
need to
question.
count. I don't need
Yeah,
actual numbers.
I'm
I mean,
not
I
gonna
know,
count.
but
I'm not gonna count. Um,
I don't think you
so
could.
I definitely have a pair of scrubs. So that's a, our pair of scrubs. But they're here. They're aren't they patternless Morocco or Southerns, right? Would they?
Patternless exanthic Marukis.
Is that what they are?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Okay. I wasn't sure if they were exanthic or not. Anyway, um, I have a pair of Warmas. I've had those for almost a decade. I've had three clutches. Since this house, I've had one clutch here, but I'm trying to have that happen again. Um, I'm very Morelia heavy, um, but probably lots of jungle um, orientated. I got the gelatins, a lot of babies, but now I've got some yearlings with the original parents. I have the Ivory Project with the babies. So there's 5 in Canada right now. Um, and then I have Spotted that I'm going to try this year. And then basically our project that we're doing for the coastal tiger stuff. So that's all the yearlings, um, babies, and I have a few 2-year-old girls. A few of them I think are possibly going to go this year. A few of them are not even going to be close, but yeah, there's a few girls that are just, I don't know what it is. They're I think they're there. We'll see what happens. Um, that almost completes this room. Oh, I also have the gray bands. I got into that about 2 years ago. So as So when I got into snakes back in 2006, I had opportunities to get gray bands, and they were pretty much just as expensive as they are now. They really hasn't changed in price. They've always been kind of like interesting to me in the hobby. I don't know. It's that dark gray with the bright orange and or lack of orange or high orange and just highlight. It's just fascinated me. There's not many colubrids that I kind of fascinated about. Um, so I have my yearling 9 miles doing fantastic, really great. Like I got these things; these were little worms, but that big. Um, the deal with the guy, I got him super cheap. He's like, "Here you go. They haven't eaten. Good luck." And I'm like, "No problems. Bring them on." Remember that day when we were at the expo? And I was
Oh,
like,
I
"Yeah,
do.
no
But
problem."
when
Right,
you've got all the rodents, ASF mice and rats, and
right.
everything's live at your place, it's pretty easy to get something established.
Right, exactly. I'm like, no problems. I've done this many times, right? And I've assist feeded stuff, and I've done tons of that kind of stuff. Um, I also have the pygmies, um, the pygmy project. The girls are doing really good. They're the two girls that we kept back. They're really excelled in the last 6 months. They've taken off, Dom. One of them's almost eating a full rat pinky. Pretty
Yeah.
impressive. Pretty
So for
impressive,
people, so I'll
right?
just tell what Shan and I do a lot of these arrangements. So I have a 2.2 of pygmies, and basically I sent one of my adult males to Shan, and then I had a hard time trying to get my baby pygmies to eat, pretty much with a completely unsuccessful. So I kind of made a deal with Shan. I breed him, you take care of the babies. So each year I breed him, I send it to him, he establishes them. And the first year, the babies that survive ended up being two females, and he's now been growing this up. And last year, I don't think we did too well last year, didn't we? No, unfortunately, last year one clutch, and they
Yeah.
all unfortunately died within 6 months or something. It's been a big challenge. And this year I had two clutches. I sent, I don't know, 16 or something
16,
to you. Yeah, 16 babies too.
16,
And
and hang on. I have,
I think we lost a few, but overall you've got a lot that are now eating on their own and doing really well. So it's been one heck of a challenge, an uphill battle. Let's put it this way. And that's why I've always brought on people that can talk about pygmies, because it's one of those species that is so hard to get them established. Like
7 left.
seven left. So
Yeah.
if I'm hoping for five to make it, and every year to keep getting better and better at it, right?
Well, six of those are eating on their own and are on like fifth meals. Like they are this year, they are really bamming. I think we hit it. I think they're going to succeed. Like I'm knocking on wood. Um, but seriously, usually it takes me way longer, and they've been on food for quite a bit already. As soon as I put a Pinky Mouse, like a day old Pinky, right in front of them, boom, hits it right away. It's a weekly thing. They're they're digesting really well. So I took some of, and this is great. These podcasts that you guys have and everybody else has around the world are awesome because you learn from these people. If you think you know everything, you don't. And learning from some of these great people out there, like Justin, um, bringing up the heat a little bit, right? So I thought, you think you're gonna cook the snake a little bit. I mean, I didn't bring it up that high, but I brought it up to a 91 in the on the uh, on the rack, and I think it's made a difference where their digestive system works a little bit better because that's the problem I was having. They were not digesting. They were eating before, but they couldn't kind of poop. Um, and like I mean, you can tell me give it a bath. I mean, the thing's this long, like it's brittle, right? It's a brittle animal. Um, but once you get the technique, it's good, and especially like anybody that says that um, like once I've done this snake, you can pretty much do any other snake. I've done milk snakes. I mean, you do a carpet python and assist feed or force feed. I don't like to do that. And trust me, I only do it in like random circumstances, but if you need to sometimes. But I mean, on a carpet python, it's so easy now. Like, I don't recommend anybody to do it. Um, I've been doing this since I was a kid too. You got to understand that, with all kinds of snakes. That was one of the things we did at the zoo, or not the zoo, but at the pet store a lot. A lot of the stuff that came in was riddled with parasites and stuff like that. So I learned a lot from a lot of people that kind of did that kind of stuff. And like
Yeah,
people would say, go to the vet. I'm talking 35 years ago, right? Um, the vets now don't really know what they're talking about. And can you imagine 35 years ago, the vets like had no idea. Cats and dogs, sure, but come to a snake or an iguana that wouldn't eat, what would they tell you?
yeah. And going back on the pygmies, I think a lot of people don't actually realize how small they are. Like,
Hmm.
if you look, like whenever they lay their eggs, you can hold a female with her entire clutch, and she fits just on the center of your palm of your hands. So those babies are like 3 inches long, and they're just insanely minuscule. Like it's truly a learning curve to learn how to get the smallest pythons going. But yeah,
So
it's
can
pretty
you
cool.
imagine putting it like even a tail or um, like, so right now I'm doing chicken gizzard, um, and when I assist feed them, I use chicken gizzard, but I've used like small rat tails and try to assist feed a pygmy that. And trust me, it's you. If you have anywhere to go or anything to do, it's not the right time to do it. You have to have patience, patience, because sometimes it'll spit it out or it won't do it, and you can't like start manipulating like every other snake. It's gonna die if you do that. It has to be stress free and when you do it, right? Have you
Yeah.
ever tried Dom? Have you ever tried it?
To the force feeding or the
Or
assist feeding?
assist feeding, force
Yeah,
feeding
I definitely have.
with the pygmies? Have you tried that?
Yeah, yeah. The first year we did half the
Okay.
clutch to you and the half the clutch to me, right? And yeah, it was tough. I was only using rat tails, and the advantage of the rat tails are, like I'm saying, rat tails are actually mice tails.
Yeah.
By having the hair backwards, you'd put it in their mouth, it's stuck in there. Eventually, they would eat it. But I don't think I've actually successfully managed to get one to survive to adulthood or even past the 6 month range. They'd all die within 4, 5, 6 months. And yeah, that's kind of one of those frustrating things. But I think overall we're doing better. Yeah, it's definitely improving. All right, Shan.
Yeah, it
Sorry, go
definitely
ahead.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say so. I kind of wanted to go down a bit the breeding pythons, and I'm gonna say breeding pythons in general because you and I have both bred a pretty good amount of pythons using a pretty specific recipe that is out there for sure. But we're all using the same recipe. I mean, I bred pygmies, spotted, Angolans, inlands, all the species of carpets. So the West Papuans, the jungles, the coastals, the Darwins, the I don't know which one I'm missing, but pretty much all of them, all the same way. So, and I do believe that it would fit a lot of pythons into this. And you've bred pretty much the similar pythons, and maybe one or two more. You've bred the Bredleys as well, and that's where we can go into the winter and the spring breeders. But I wanted to talk a bit about the whole prep and all that. So I'll let you start. Why don't you tell me the first steps before you actually start breeding? What's your first step to you?
Well, like I said earlier, first thing before anything, assess your animals. Um, is the animal mature enough? Not by weight. A lot of people are gonna power feed their animal or anything to get it up to size and weight. It has nothing to do with weight. I'm sure lots of people have already said that. Um, it's usually age of maturity. Um, so at least two for a male. I'd say closer to three for a female is probably good. If you the longer you wait, I find, I don't know if you've noticed that, Dom, or not, but I feel like the second clutch of a snake always does better for me. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of. I think it depends on the size, right? Like,
Yeah,
technically, you could get a female at the 2.5 marks, but it's really rare they're ready. Usually, the 3.5 is where you want it, and that would be for spring breeders. Winter breeders, you're more looking at the 4.5, sometimes even a little bit more. So the spring breeders would be more like the inlands kind of fall in there. They kind of fall in between both, but diamond pythons, Bredleys, anything else that falls in there. But anyway, so those ones tend to need to be older to get them ready. But yeah, so earliest is 2.5, and I've had some girls go at 2.5, but usually 3.5 plus is usually what goes. And their first clutch is not always the biggest clutch or the best clutch.
exactly. So I usually, that's the first thing. I assess the females, see if it's a good idea. Maybe, wait an extra year. Um, especially when it's not only one pairing you're doing, and like, I know that person that's just starting out breeding maybe is going to be like, I have to breed this snake. We don't have to breed the snakes all the time. It's kind of nice, but we don't always have to breed it. But that's the first thing we look at. And then bringing up your animal to size. So right now, like I said, I probably have maybe 4 feedings left till the end of the year for all animals except probably a few yearlings that didn't do very well and all babies. Everything else is going to go off food. So they got a month and a bit. So every 2 weeks at least, I'm going to be feeding. And then, yeah, I would just go to um, do that. And then come October 31st is where I would kind of have, yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Um,
Not right now though. In about 5 minutes, I'm going to need to just pause the podcast for a few seconds there. So yeah, so just like you, I feed them all up and get them all up to size. Then the next step is figuring out who's ready, who's healthy, who's all that. And then it's more a time of about where we are. So if we look at kind of where we are right now, we're in September. So the end of
mhm.
September. This is right now the time where you look at all your females and you tell yourself, are they ready? And if they're not, can 2 or 3 more feeds get them ready? Right.
Yes.
So I have a lot of these females here that I've kind of all put pairings together in my head, been like, this would go here, here, here. And I've got kind of all these ideas. And then I've got all these like in betweens where I'm like, she's 2.5, she won't be ready. She's 3.5, but she's small. I don't know if she'll be ready. Then I've got others one where I'm like, I bet you if I get 3 or 4 more meals in her, I can get her ready. So the big thing is usually a lot of people will talk about the holidays, right? So I feed till around Halloween, so October 31st. So keep feeding, and I'll give my last feeding on October 31st or around there, a day or so ago. And I'll try to feed everything until then. And then once I get there, that's usually when I'll stop feeding. And then you will keep the heat, make everything the exact same thing in your room, and just wait. And usually I'll wait a period of about 4 weeks. And during those 4 weeks, the animals will poop, will slowly empty themselves out, and then will eventually just be all empty. And that's when then the next steps will come. All right, I assume that nobody will notice that we've had a huge problem with our recording, but we had to pause it and we've put everything back together. I hope it's going to be perfectly going smooth right throughout. So I
It
think
was
we
a
just finished. Sorry, go ahead.
it was a little distracting there at the end. I was trying to read the screen, what was going on, and I'm like, sorry, everyone.
Yeah. So we just finished it with. So you fed all your animals. You stopped on October 31st. 1 whole month of no
Yeah,
feeding. Let the animals empty themselves out. By then, you're pretty much end of November.
same temperatures through the whole time. What you would be keeping at. So hot spot usually 88, and the ambient heat 78, 79. Usually in my room.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the all year round, right? So now
Yeah.
at this point, what do you start doing, Shan?
So after I reached the like, I would say November 31st, so December 1st, I would say around that time, maybe a weekend or something from that, I will start cooling down. I'm gonna hit a day. I'm gonna pick a day that's good for me, right? So for me, I usually use Friday. I'll be every Friday. I'm gonna lower it by 2 degrees, right? So the ambient heat is gonna go down at nighttime 2 degrees. And I do the same thing in the tanks. And I do that. Um, and then, I also judge what's going on outside. So, last year was a little different. It didn't get cold very quick. So I took my time. Um, at certain times, people would say, well, 2 degrees, you wouldn't get to that temperature when you need to get to the 60. I guess I got to about a 62, maybe a 63 in this room. I don't know, around that in this room at one point. I don't know if it was all the way through the room, but it was definitely pretty cold. Um, I had a
So,
fan running. Yeah, go ahead.
so I was gonna say, just to clarify something, by lowering for 2 degrees, we're talking about only nighttime temps, right? So
Yes,
you're lowering two things. You're lowering both your um, hotspots and you're lowering both your ambient temperature. So,
yes,
but everything should be on timers, and your daytimes should be the same throughout the entire year. So if you're picking if your ambient is 77, 78, or 79, whatever it is, during the daytime, the entire year it's identical. And then if your hotspot is, let's say, 88 during the daytime, it is 88 the entire time throughout the entire year. You're
yes.
lowering by 2 degrees. Your hotspots are your ambient by 2 degrees slowly once a week. So if you start at 79, next week you're 77 at night, next week you're 75 at night, and so on and so on. You're saying you're going down to about 62. Is that it?
That's how low I saw at one point. I mean, so that was on the ground. So, I mean, it probably was a little warmer than that. So maybe like a 65.
Yeah.
But it got cold enough, right?
Yeah. And,
Um,
and
this
another thing
is
to
this is
note, you're
my
talking about,
regular room.
yeah,
This is my regular.
you're
Sorry.
talking about like certain temperatures and all that, and the top and the bottom. And something to keep in mind is your room, the floor temperature is not the same as the ceiling temperature. Everybody's room will have probably at 2 to 3 degrees. So usually you keep your lower temperature species to the ground,
That's right.
your higher temperatures. So for example, your Darwins would be closer to the top, your inlands, any of those colder species would be much, much lower, and then in between. Sorry, keep going, my friend.
Absolutely. No. But I mean, so you got to know this is my regular room. I also have a cold room, so we'll
Yeah, so
talk
you're
about
talking about
that.
the winter breeders now, right?
Uh, no. So yes, the winter breeders is what we're talking about right now. We're not even talking about spring breeders. But you're going to do somewhat the same thing, right? I start the same way with my spring breeders. So everything does the same thing. Every snake does the same thing. So spring breeder room, my cold room, whatever you want to call it, I still do the same thing. It would just go a little longer, and we'll talk about that later. Um, but getting back to the temperature, yes. So you're just going to slowly go down to that temperature, and obviously being outside kind of helps. So last year it didn't get cold enough just in the room that I had to open up a window and blow a little fan in the room. And in certain spots, I had um, like kind of insulation foam or like a styrofoam on certain cages to make sure it wasn't. It was kind of wrapping the air around, and to make sure the draft wasn't coming in, and it worked perfectly. Just hit the right temps.
Yeah. So basically, you keep lowering and lowering. For me, I think my room goes down to about a 64, and 64, 65. And for my lower species, which were the inland, what I would do is, because I couldn't go lower than that, I took that cage and physically put it directly on the floor, and I got them down to about 61. So they went down a little bit more. And yeah, so now the question is, at which point do you start pairing? And this is where everybody's a little bit different. I can tell you that Shan always pairs before me and loves to get locks before me. I don't know why, because he's maybe a little bit more impatient, but he tends to pair everything up before. Some people start pairing midway through the cooling. Some people tend to pair when the animals are completely cooled down, and some people will actually do it even later. So when the temperatures start going back up, and as a general rule, you tend to keep your temperature at, say, you bring it all the way down to 64. You tend to spend what, 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks down to the 64, and then after that, you start slowly bringing it up by 2 degrees again. Every week, go up by 2 or 3 degrees, right? So, Shan,
Yeah,
when do you pair?
it all depends. So some people don't like to pair right off the bat. Um, a great, I don't know if that really means anything. I pair sometimes to see, especially if it's the first time around, to see how the snakes are going to be compatible. If they're going to, I've seen some pretty rough rides, and I actually wondered a few times. I asked him, is this really a girl? And he's like, I guarantee it's a girl, right? And I'm like, it they just didn't seem like they were compatible together at all. Like he was riding her like she was much bigger, and I was like, I almost thought they were two males, right? But they weren't. And eventually they settled down, and it all happened. But I mean, compatibility is what I look for, and that's why I pair up. So if you see the male, I have certain males that are just instantly, as soon as he sees a female, he's or any other snake, they'll go and check it out, right? So you have to watch. That's one thing. Um, Make sure you have male and female, and not male male. Those are issues that can happen. Like if you're for sure got a male and a female, no problems. But even then, watch. You know, make sure that they're compatible. And some males are just like hungry, like instantly. As soon as you 10 minutes, he's on the female. And then you have other males. It'll take a little while, right? I've had males a few times. I'm like, are you sure this is a male? Or, like you ask yourself if he was playing for the other side. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. It's up and down. That being said, if you tend to pair earlier, let's say while you're cooling down or at the bottom cooling, you'll often get a lot of locks. But I've always found that those locks are kind of like, they're good for confirming you've got a pair that's compatible, but they're usually not the locks that tend to really mean anything. Um, the locks that start really meaning something is usually when you get around Christmas time. That's about when you've around Christmas, the temperatures are finally starting to rise. And as your temperatures start to rise, a lot more of those locks start to be good, and that's when you start looking at the females. The females tend to plump up. They tend to get a little bit wider. You can also kind of look, and you're starting to look to see if you've got any ovulation or anything like that. So ovulation, if often, best way I can put it is, often you'll be like, was that an ovulation? When you have to question it, it's not an ovulation. It's more follicle growth. So often they'll get these small swelling segments, and usually the back third of their body will swell up a little bit. They're not going to get gigantic. They're just going to slowly swell up. But when they ovulate, trust me, it's obvious. You're not going to doubt it. Like, you're talking about swallowing a football. Like, the animals get almost twice as big as they should. As a general rule, after the ovulation, at that point, if they keep breeding, they're just having fun. Okay, usually when you actually get the ovulation is a sign that the follicles have now been released down the canal, the man, I'm blanking out here, that have been released down the oviducts. There you go. And at that point, really, you hope the male did its job. But that being said, if you are not certain whether those eggs were fertilized, whether you know it was an ovulation thing, leave the male in there. Let him keep having fun. I've had males breed until the day of that she lays her eggs. So yeah, you want to share a couple more things, Shan, or you're kind of
Absolutely. I agree. So, the I'm just saying, yeah, I pair early. You're totally correct with, they probably don't mean a whole lot. but I still like to do it. Um, Sometimes it's just easier to keep the snakes together so you don't miss something. Sometimes when you're really busy, I mean, that's just a way to keep them together. It's not really gonna hurt. They're either gonna do it or they're not gonna do it, right? I mean, at the end of the day, um, I still check on them at least once or twice a week. Take them out or check on the female, make sure she's all good. But then, yeah, you slowly raise the temperature up, keep them together. They'll breed, and then eventually, when you almost get up to the temperature to where you're back up to spring, like in the winter breeders, um, I find the male. You'll see that where when it's over, like the male will tend to go to one area, the enclosure, and then the female will go to the other side of the enclosure, and they kind of hang out like they're like not good friends anymore. um, Usually that's when I separate after that. Um, some people separate back and forth. I've done it. Some snakes I do separate back and forth. Pairing is always good. I find some people say before a storm or like 24 hours before a storm. So barometric pressure. Um, so yes, I find when it's snowing is very good, like hard, and you just keep them together for try to keep them together 24 hours before the storm, and at least till after the storm. You'll tell, like he won't be interested, and he'll do the same thing. He'll kind of like, all right, kind of done, you know. Um, yeah, so I find that's pretty important. Knowing your weather, looking at the weather channel, is pretty important. So if you have a year that's poor on that, some people like kind of use light and food and cooling cycle, but I find that kind of gets the male going. It, Something to
Yeah.
entice the male, right? Sometimes it sheds. I've heard of that and I've seen it online. People, so in the past, you just throw a male shed in a male's tank to see if he kind of get going and everything. But I've seen now a Ziploc bag and you take a male um, shed and you kind of wet it with a spray bottle and you kind of get it going and everything. And then you kind of take the excess water out of it, but then put it in the tank, and then you see the pheromones come out a lot more than if it was a dry shed. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's, I don't
And
know
you
if
got to
it would
keep in
work.
mind though, so that works well for species that combat. And depending on what species you're breeding, that could be different. Like if you take inlands and diamonds are renowned for not combating.
Yeah.
So really throwing a shed, putting two males together and being like they never locked up, chances are they'll never fight. You'll never have an issue. They probably could live together and you'd most likely be fine. Right. But if you put two coastals, you're going to see two males going at it. And so, in other words, the shed is a great idea for combating species. For species
Yes.
that
Yeah.
tend not to combat, not as useful, right? So just make sure you know which species you have. And again, this method has worked great for us for multiple different species of Antaresia, of Morelia, and a couple of other weird ones. So that is definitely one thing. You also hit up a couple of other things. So the weather network, 100% love. Keep an eye on weather. It's a big thing. Light cycles is another big thing we do. In my case, all my cages are on they're astronomical
Astronomical.
timers. There you
Mm.
go. So
I
basically, it
have the
just
same
means
thing
that
as you do. It's
yeah.
it's
So
awesome.
the
It's people. It is seriously. I mean, it follows like the Earth's pattern in your geographical area. It's perfect.
it's
So when
genius.
this
So
right, it is, and it's kind of like
so
hands free. Like I mean, who wouldn't want that? Make it nice and easy. If you have a big collection, it's the perfect thing to do. Actually, thank you very much.
yeah.
It
So all you
works.
do is they're just little timers that aren't connected to the internet. Nothing special. They're $20, and it just follows the sunset and the sunrise of the outside, depending on which time zone you're in. So we're in Eastern time zone. We just put Eastern time zone, and it matches, and it lengthens the days, shortens the days automatically. It's amazing. So, and then there's the feeding. So feeding is another one of those things that some people use, and obviously we use it initially. But what I'm talking about is now. So now, let's say we're in end of December, start of January. This is where now they've got their heat back. Everything is back to normal. Some people, what they'll do is they'll start feeding. Okay, they'll start feeding the females. It's something that I've tried sometimes. I've mainly tried it with girls that I feel aren't going. I don't know if it's necessary. I don't know if it truly makes a difference, but a lot of people speak of it like if it's a very big thing and it's very successful. And so what they do is they separate, then they tend to give the female some food. The only problem to keep in mind is that female hasn't eaten in about 4 months, right? So if you're going to feed it for the first time, you can't feed it a big meal. It's got to be like if it eats adults rats, you're feeding it a hopper, right? Because you're restarting an organ that has shrank down to 10 to 15% of its size. But some people find that feeding once, two, or three times initially after is enough for the female to be like, oh, there's food. Food is plentiful. It's time to breed, and she's ready to go. So some people have had success. I personally don't. I tend to not really use that method. I've never had a lot of success. How about you, Shan? Do you ever do the feeding on females that won't go for you?
Um, so very nervous about that. So I personally would, I don't know, maybe just bad theory or something, but I worry about like giving it a meal, not too big. Obviously, you don't want to do too big, but even a meal will get that female on that instead of actually creating like going in and causing an ovulation. That's what I worry about. Like she'll skip the season because she has food. Because I don't know, she has food instead of breeding. I don't know. Maybe you're just not going to hit it properly. I worry about that. So I have used it in the past, but I don't use it very often. I use it for the spring breeders. So the spring breeders, I definitely do. And for some reason, Bredley's, for some reason, it works really good. Give them a big meal, and boom. I don't know what it does. Even the male, you give him a meal, a nice big meal, and all of a sudden he was all over the female. It's like it turned on a light switch. I don't
Yeah.
know.
So
So it just depends, right?
yeah. So going back to the spring breeders. So again, we're talking about winter breeders now. The only true difference between a winter and a spring breeder is how low you get it. So let's say it takes you 6 weeks to bring down the temperatures to 64. The difference between a winter breeder is you're all identical until there. Then the winter breeder goes to 62, to 60, to 58, to
In in
56. And
February, I was still down, way down. I was
yeah,
still in the 50s,
yeah,
and
and you want to hit.
I got down really low this,
Yeah,
like,
I was gonna say you want to hit a couple of really low days. So if you picture that it takes you an extra 6 weeks to go all the way down to like the low 50s. Some people even bring them down to the high 40s, and we'll try to get them to have one or two really cold days, and then after that you start raising back. So basically, the reason they're called spring breeders is by the time you make the loop all the way down to the mid to low 50s or even high 40s and go all the way back up, you're about 8 to 10 weeks past the breeding season of the winter breeders. But at that point, when you're there with the Bredleys and the Diamonds, you're at the same place as where you are with the winter breeders. You're just 9, 10 weeks after, right? But it's still kind of the same thing, right? You bring them back up, and then the introductions. Everybody does it a little bit differently. Some people do it early, some people do it later. But a lot of the times, you'll be getting eggs from the winter breeders, and you'll be like, I haven't even paired up my spring breeders.
exactly. So by the time my winter room was up to like pretty much regular temperatures, like what we are at now, um, my winter breeders were still like way down low and weren't even. I don't even think I had them going back up. I took a long time to bring them back up. I probably did 2 weeks at a 50, like in the 50s. I did 2 nights at around 52. So I hit really low.
Yeah.
I was
And
quite
again,
I was quite
daytime,
impressed
you've
with
got
that.
the 88. Yeah. And
80,
daytime, you still have the high
86,
heat.
86,
86? Yeah.
86 in the Brettles. I went. They always tell you to go a little lower with them, and they can handle. But their hotspot, radiant heat panel on the one side. Um, so one thing I changed from the years before was the upper hides. I used to put the upper hides, and I got rid of the upper hides last year because the females would go in the upper hide. I don't know. Maybe it's just like I said, um, my own theory on things. But then they would cuddle in there, but nothing would happen, and they weren't going. Maybe they weren't ready the year before. I didn't go cold enough, so I got rid of the upper hide at the last bit when I know the female is, and the ovulation. You can see they just, it's so huge on them,
Yeah.
and you can tell. Then I offer a box, a lay-in box for them. So she does have a lay-in box, and they do use it.
So before we get to the lay box, I just want
Yeah,
to go back on something you said there. You're talking
yeah,
about
yeah,
top height. So if you look on top of me right there, you'll see two cages that have pieces of wood and everything in there. Okay, this is how my cages look during the year. For me, when it comes to breeding season, it's kind of like shameful. I don't want anybody to look in my cages because it is plain Jane, bare bones, nothing in there. And when I mean like you've got a very simple hide box that is gigantic, you've got a water bowl, and you have maybe one other thing or almost nothing. No wood, no nothing. I literally remove everything from the cage to be able to let the male be able to just roam freely and, you know,
yeah,
get on the female. The more shit, the more branches, the more hides, everything like that, you're just making it more and more difficult for the breeding to happen. And you know what I mean? Like, I know visually it's kind of boring to have a gigantic, like having a 4x2 with paper, one bowl, one big hide, and almost nothing else. But I'm telling you, like, it's just, I remove everything. I've got like a gigantic, like, I can have a meter square of logs and all that. That is everything taken out. I take off my top hides too. I take off everything. I just make it simple for the animals to breed. So that's something that I found had a lot more success. Also, all my cages are connected with these drain pipes for plumbing. And I used to have the cages open so that this way, I'd have maybe multiple females and one male, and I'd have two or three cages, 4x2s connected together. I found I had a lot less success, a lot less locks until I just put the three animals in one 4x2 with an open floor plan and nothing else. A lot easier for the male to do his job than having all these different cages connected together. It's kind of one of those things where we've tried, loved the idea. I was like, oh my God, I can give him a 12 by 2 floor space. But when you did that, the male wouldn't find the females. It just reduced my success rate is the best way to say. So something else, and in our case, many species you can do one male to multiple females, and if you have a good male, he'll have no issue doing them all. And if you keep them together, the male will go to the female that is at the right time of breeding. Like he'll smell her, he'll know who to breed, and it's one of those advantages by having two females with a male. You'll notice that sometimes he's only breeding one female. He'll completely ignore the other one, and then all of a sudden he'll switch. He'll only go to the other one for a little while and such. Shannon, anything to add on that?
So I've done it a few times. I've done it two ways. I've done it with two females and the one male all in one tank, and it's happened that way. And I've also had with in the case of the zebra and the caramel zebra, they were both het for albino, and the albino zebra male, he would just he was just a good breeder. And I go from one tank to the next. He would go to one snake. He would do 2 3 days with the snake, and then he would just stay off to the side. And then I'm like, all right, you're done. Take him, put him in the other tank, and then instantly, maybe I overworked him a little bit. Like he did fine. He did 2 years like that. I don't think it overworks them, but like
I Yeah, I was gonna
go
say it
ahead.
doesn't overwork them. The only problem with doing that, I used to do exactly that too. My issue with that is that when you have two separate cages and you're moving one male to the other, you might miss that magical window, right? And yes, they can hold sperm, and yes, it's been proven that they've held sperm for up to a year after for most python species. Some is a lot less, some is a lot longer. In Morelia, I had one female retain sperm for a year, and it is possible, but I'm telling you, like it's the one problem with the method you're talking about is if you're with one male for 1 week, during that whole week, that female might have been in that prime spot where she was ready to ovulate, and that male wasn't there. So I personally think it's safer to have the two females in with the male, but I do agree. I mean, I used to do it like that, and I still had very great success. It's just my personal preference would be putting the two females with the male. Yeah,
Uh,
no.
yeah, agreed. Yeah, sorry, took a little while to press the button. No, I agreed. I've just had some times where the male with two females and no action, but as soon as he separated them, he took to one female. It just depends on the male. So that Bredel, the male, for the longest time, I don't know. I called them every name in the book. I'm like, I almost gave up on that project, and then I hit it really well last year, and um, like he showed no signs, like not a sign, till the last 2 months. The last 2 months, it's like light switch. It's like he's a male. He's actually doing it. I caught him. Like for like 4 years.
Yeah, you were
Like
happy.
I thought he was like, playing for the other side. I'm like, no. And it was awesome. It was awesome to see him. I'm like, all right, I want to take a picture, but I don't want to disturb him. Yeah, but it's just I don't know. I really think I didn't have him cold enough. That's probably what it is. And the giving him the a right amount of food, like you said, that gives them the trigger sometimes. A lot of food is plentiful. Let's breed. A lot of food is plentiful. Let's, uh, create follicles and, have an ovulation and then have eggs, right? That's what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure. So something else we can go into is, geez, having a brain fart here. Wow, just had a train of thought and totally lost it.
So with the upper heights, I'm just gonna say with the upper heights, I do keep them with some of them. With the Brettles, I took them all out. I found they hung out in those too often, and it just didn't happen. So with certain snakes, I do keep them. So a lot of the carpets and morellas, I keep them together. They'll they'll do their thing. Some males are just persistent. They don't care. They'll chase the female out of there, and then they'll just do their thing. So it's not a big deal. I haven't had that problem with most other snakes. So I just keep it the way it is. But yes, I do take out branches and all that fancy stuff. I try to keep it simple like you do, for
Yeah,
sure.
perfect. Okay, I got my train of thought back, man. Thanks for
So,
saving me there.
no worries.
So what I was gonna say is that often you have your breeding pairs in your head, right? And you're like, male A is going to be breeding to female B and C, and sometimes it is really tough to not say, you know what, I'm pulling you out, and we're putting another male. Sometimes males just suck. Like my coastals are one of the big projects that I have really nice animals. I have a male that's been my main breeder male forever. He's actually in Nick and Mutton's and Justin Julander's book in the Morph project, in the Morph section. He's the super caramel xanthic male. So gorgeous male. He's fathered so many babies. He's been amazing. I mean, Shan and I both probably have a good 7 or 8 of his babies that we've held back over the years, and they're gorgeous. Last year, I decided I was benching him, and benching a male that strong is a hard thing. But I had a super hypo tiger, and I wanted that male to breed my two main females, and I was like, I really want something different, and that male just wouldn't do a thing, wouldn't go near the girls, was afraid. And sometimes, you know what the problem is, you don't actually know if he bred or not. You don't actually know if he's one of those sneaky males that gets it done. Okay, and that's one of those big things. In my opinion, when you pick a male, you're stuck with him for the season. That is your male for that pairing, because there's nothing that tells you if that male will actually get the job done, even if you never saw him breed. And I mean, a couple of years with the pygmies, I never saw them lock up, but I got eggs, right?
Yeah.
So some species you don't see, and some snakes are very sneaky and get it done even when you don't see it. And some will breed for 15 minutes and be done, and others will lock up for 48 hours, sometimes even more, and they're permanently locked up, and you're like, holy geez, like, and they never let themselves go, right? So it's one of those things, but it can be tough. Like last year, I um I had the worst season I've ever had with coastal. I think last year was the first time that I did not breed coastal carpet pythons in years. Only because I didn't use that male. I picked the other male. He was a 2.5 year old male, and just wouldn't do anything. Since then, that male now is almost twice the size. He's huge. He's got the big fat head. I'm pretty sure this year he'll do the job. But again, I'm going to end up putting him with that female. And if he doesn't breed, I'm again screwed. That project will not produce again. But it is one of those things where, as a general rule, you really don't want to use two different males unless they're identical. You know, if you had two brothers and they both have the same genetics and you're using it, if it doesn't matter in that case, or if you're 100% sure, you're going to know what the genetics are or what it is. You know, if you breed, I don't know, one that is a certain morph, that'll give a different morph depending on which male it is, so you know you can identify it. But that is another big consideration to take. Yeah. So, at what point do you put the nest box? Let's go into what do you use for nest box, and when do you put it in the cage?
Um, I can off so Morella. I'll probably offer it. Well, we always have kind of my upper hide's got some cypress mulch in it, so they could use that as the upper hide as some part of their nesting. I also offer a little box, usually a tote with a hole in it, with the top on it. I put it off to the side in a nice little corner. Um, and then, yeah, they just, with some cypress mulch, obviously, a little dampen, um, not too wet, not and then you'll see the snake. They'll go settle in there, go in, check it in there. And when it comes time to use it, um, sometimes I use those year round with certain snakes, and the nesting, like those nesting box, so the upper hides I use all the time, but the nesting boxes I only use during the season. And usually, I don't know, as soon as the season kind of comes, I kind of offer it. Probably right after the male, definitely after the male is out of there. Um, like if they're breeding and stuff, I don't want them going, like there's no need to have a breeding box at that point because you're not going to get any eggs anytime soon, right? Um, but like once the male's out of there, you kind of get the female. She'll start looking for a spot. They get kind of restless right at the end when they're going to drop eggs. So you want to offer something. So definitely at the end, you have to be ready. You don't want them to drop on the paper. You don't want them to drop on the hot spot. And they'll drop wherever they have to if they don't feel comfortable. So you have to offer a good spot. Some people make, like I think you make them with PVC and make a hole in them so it's like dark. So I have a clear little toad off to the side. Um, but I have like a lower hide too. So sometimes I hide it behind certain things, right? So like me coming into the room doesn't spook them. They're not ever like out in the open where a lot of traffic is. The traffic is me. So I try to tend to be slow when I come in the room, but yeah, I try to give them their own little space. But that dark one, so like I mean, it makes them feel comfortable. You got to make your snake feel comfortable. You're on mute. There you
Got
go.
to do it every show. So that's a really good point. So a lot of my totes are actually clear, which you really should have darker nest boxes. But it's different. Like for the people that have only a few snakes and keep their snakes in their living room where people walk or where your dog or your cat passes by, you really want to have that privacy. If you have an actual snake room where literally nobody ever comes into except when you're cleaning it or things like that, I think you can get away with clear egg boxes. You can get away with all that stuff because realistically, there's nothing walking in front of that window, right? So I do have dark boxes, I do have clear boxes, and I'll be honest, I tend to just fill them up with a lot of a little bit of cypress mulch, but a lot of moss there of I don't know, that little sphagnum moss. There you go. So I tend to put so much that when they go in there, they tend to make a circle in the middle and push all the sphagnum moss everywhere on the sides. So in the end, I don't even see anywhere through those boxes because there's so much that they tend to squish it and push to the side that it becomes an opaque egg boxes. They will often move those egg boxes where they want them. So often, if you have more of an open floor plan, you'll notice that it always gets moved closer to the heat or further from the heat. All normal things. I tend to start putting it in the cage when I think that there might have been follicle growth or even an ovulation. Usually, when I know they're 20 days away, that'll be in there. And like Shan's saying, they will definitely start pacing. They will start moving across the cage. They'll be acting up, and usually you can kind of count those days. So if you can identify when they actually ovulate, then from that ovulation, you're waiting for the shed. Usually after the shed, they tend to go approximately 21 to 28 days as the normal. Some go shorter, some go longer. As a general rule, if you get a snake that sheds and has eggs before the 20 sorry, before 20 days, it's most often slugs. So it just, if you get a snake that lays 7 days after they're shed, I can pretty much guarantee those are all going to be slugs. But 21 to 28 days is kind of the normal. That being said, some females don't read the books and kind of do whatever they want. I have a few females that will go 40, 42 days, and they've made me stress out like crazy. And then the next year, they still go 42 days. The next time they breed, they still go 42 days. So there is what the average is, and some females kind of just do their own thing, but then they do their own thing the same way every year. So if you keep records, like just your if you have like your NPR calendar, like we do, I just write the date. Okay, this female laid on this day. This female had her prelay shed on this day, and it took her 26 days. Next year, it'll be they tend to lay almost to the day on the same day or off by a day or two, and they go the same amount of days each year. So, and yes, you do hope that they go in their lay box. They don't always. I have some females that'll lay it in the stupidest place. I recommend smaller water bowls. Some people, if they know they're going to go that day, they just literally take them all out, or just give them a small water bowl. Like if it's a small enough water bowl that maybe an egg or two will fit. Worst case, you lose one or two. But it can happen, man. Some girls just move around if they're pacing and they're unhappy with their cage, and they'll just lay as they move around. And if they're moving over the water bowl, they can lay some eggs in those water bowls, and those are pretty much guaranteed gone if they stay in there for too long. But the majority will use their nest box. They're usually pretty good about it. I'll let you go, Shan.
So
You want to
so
add?
agreed. So what I was saying is sometimes we offer uh, moist boxes for when they're shedding and stuff. So the upper hides is what I use. I feel they use their upper hides as lay boxes sometimes. The box I offer off to the side, they get enough off that upper hide. So the upper hide we have racking, and so the other tank is sitting there, and it's got a. So we heat with some of my tanks. I heat with flex watt tape or heating tape, right? And on a thermostat. And I feel like the upper hide is sitting there and they're getting that heat off that. And it makes a whole lot of a difference. They don't have to go anywhere. She just will sit there and get her heat. And then when she needs time to lay, she'll lay there and then she'll do the honeycomb till she's like till I take her off the eggs, and she'll go up there, and I feel like that's good.
Yeah, and most females are really good about taking care of their eggs. The exceptions to that is Jags. A lot of the ones with the morph Jags tend to be terrible mothers, and they lay eggs, and their eggs are usually good. They're not good at coiling. I'd say 80% of all my females are nicely wrapped around all the egg clutch and probably could have maternally incubate. I'm not going to talk too much about maternal incubation because I don't think Shan's done it. I don't think I've done it. As to why not, I'll be honest, I'm a control freak. I like controlling everything, and I love the idea of taking the mom off and being able to start getting her back on track instead of making her incubate the eggs for another 55 to 60 days, right? You got to keep in mind that if you're doing maternal incubation, that female that just lost 35 to 50% of her body weight laying those eggs now is going to go another almost 2 months sitting on eggs, shivering, keeping them warm, taking care of them, not feeding, and she's just going to be that much worse once she's done. So for me personally, um, when you know what you when you've had good success with artificial incubation, it's hard to do it. I've always told myself one day if I have a female that does it perfectly and that I know she can do it and that I don't care about the clutch, I'm gonna let her take care of it. Unfortunately, I always care about my clutches, so I've I've always taken them away. But maybe one day I'll do it. You've never done MI, right, Chan?
No, I've never done MI. I feel the same way about it. Um, that's hard on a female. I mean, we're stopping feeding them October 31st, right? So they empty out for a month. So give them, let's say, November November 30th. Yeah, December 1st.
Yep.
They have no more food. They've pooped everything out. That's all they got. And now, they have eggs, starting March, April. So they're going a long time without food. And like I said, sometimes we don't offer our females any food after they come up from temperature. I just let them go, and I let the male take care of things. And as soon as I see that the females um, ovulated and all that, I just prepare. I don't offer any food. Um, and I just get her ready to lay. And then, so just think of that. That's a long time. And now you're expecting them to go another, what is it? For maternal, I don't know if it's any different than, it's got to be different than like incubate, like our incubation, right? Like us, it's what,
It's the
60
same. It just
days?
depends.
Is it?
Well,
Yeah. Okay.
I'd say 55. Sometimes it can be as low as 51. Can be as high as 60 plus. It really depends on temps, right? If you're incubating at 84, 85, it'll take 65 plus days. If you're incubating at 87, 87 and a half, 88, you're looking at 51 to 52 days. I incubate at 87. Um, Everybody incubates at different days. At 87, I'm getting 54 days about. Usually you get the first pips at like 53, day 54, sometimes day 52. And maternal incubation, I mean, it all depends on what the heat is in there, right? Because if you're providing them certain heat and they're really incubating in the 80s or the low 80s, they'll get it there, but it might take them 65 days to get there, right? I mean, the most famous story that I hear all the time is Owen McIntyre from NPR talking about how he artificially incubated his eggs and forgot to plug his incubator. And I think he talks about how it took like 80 plus days to hatch out like carpet pythons that should have taken 50 plus, right? Well, it was 70 something in his room and they still hatched. It just took forever, right? I hear often of people talking about they get bigger offsprings when they incubate lower temperature. The validity of that statement, I question it. Um, I find that certain clutches have just smaller babies, certain clutches have bigger babies, but I tend to incubate at all the same temperature. I think some people have tried to do some experiments, but I don't. I would say that that's still unfounded. I don't think one gets better. Just like you'll hear often, people also talk about maternal incubation yields bigger babies. Again, not quite sure about that. So let's go if your eggs are laid. take out the females, you put the eggs in your egg box.
Excuse me.
So Shan, why don't you tell me about how do you incubate your eggs? Do you just put a gigantic pile in there and toss them in the incubator? What are you doing?
So in the past, I've done all kinds of things. I've done the vermiculite like everybody does. Very messy. Gets on the eggs. I don't even know if that's really good stuff to touch, but anyway, we use it. I've used Purelite. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but Purelite. I've used
I think
other
it's
methods.
perlite, but I like it.
Perlite, okay. Uh, I've used the water method. So basically, an aquarium with a little container. I didn't do it with python eggs, but I've done it with. Actually, I've done it with python eggs too. My first few clutches. I looked it up on YouTube.
You're talking about the aquarium heater?
The aquarium heater in the aquarium.
That's
and
old school. I've done that too.
And you have a container floating in the aquarium the whole time.
Yeah, mine didn't float. I would put it on bricks, but you'd have an aquarium, you'd have water. You put two bricks. The container was on top of the water, but the water was on the outside of the incubator, like outside of the actual egg box. And you'd have an aquarium heater inside the water, heating the water, which would heat the air on top, which would eventually get. It was such a
So
low tech.
mine was a little different. Yes,
Yeah.
same kind of method. So I'd have an aquarium heater with the brick, and I put it through the hole so it would stay down there. That's how I would get it to stay down there. And then I would just play with it a little bit. I'd set it at a certain temperature, and then have another little thermostat. You know, the ones that float in the aquarium. You know, certain things like that would keep the heat on that. And then I go to Walmart and buy one of those digital probe ones, and I put that in the container and I let it just float around with. And so the box, the lay box or the incubation box, was Purelite, and I didn't even know they were called light diffusers, but that's what there are, is the light diffusers. And you cut them to size, you put them on top. I don't like to put the eggs right in the Purelite. It's just more chance to get wet. So I just like them to sit on top. The moisture is just created on the outside of the container. In the old days, I'd put two little holes on each side to let the ventilation. And once a week, you'd pull the aquarium. So you'd have a glass lid to go on top and pull all the humidity off of it. Nowadays, well, I mean, I went from that to styrofoam, big styrofoam, you know, where you put your meat, or you have like some people deliver certain things. They're like cooler packs.
Basically.
Yeah, cooler packs, right? Put a piece of wood, put your flex watt tape, put it to, I think we talked about that the other time, a dimmer switch, figure out where the dimmer switch, where it gets you to 90 or 88, and then you have a light diffuser, and you sit your lay box on top. I mean, I went to that kind of thing next.
Yeah.
And
went
then
from that, and then the hoverbaiter. I used the hoverbaiter.
I've never used one of those.
I used that.
No. So
right,
I made my own thing, and then I went with the wine cooler after that, because it was
right.
mini fridge.
So let's take it to what you do now. So forgetting the 90s, how about the 2020s? How do you incubate now?
So yeah, taking it up a step. So obviously the best thing to do is go look for like a Coke cooler or a Coke fridge. You know, like the old fridges that you find at like the pizza shop, where you had to find the little, you know, pop cans and stuff. Go get one of those. One online that says, "Hey, it doesn't work. Nothing on it works," and take the guts off of it. That's what I did. I just got rid of the coolant. Mine was on top. Some people it's on the bottom. Mine was on top. Just cut it right off. And so then patched up that hole. And then all I did is big flex watt tape, hooked it up. So that was my heat source. And then I hooked up computer fans. So you get them on Amazon or any of those kind of places, and you hook it up to a DC. Nowadays you don't use them anymore, but like typewriters, or not the typewriters, but the little calculators there where you had to plug them in and you had to put them into the wall. Those kind of things. It's not a um, full voltage, so you hook those up to the fan. If you hook it up to a regular, um, like a regular gauge of wire, you'll blow the fan. So I've learned that lesson. So you gotta like use I don't know, like I said, it's a plug-in kind of thing. It's got its own changes to it, like a lower voltage. You hook that
Okay.
up, and then the fan works.
So
Um,
I use just regular computer fans. You can buy a computer
yeah.
fan for like 15-20 bucks, and those ones you can connect to regular wiring, 120
Oh
volt,
yeah.
and yeah,
Okay.
zero issues. And the like, so I use the same incubator as you. We both, and mine's a computer fan, and all I did was one of the Exoterras sells a wire with like different gradings, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they actually do sell a computer fan hooked up to that too. You can actually buy it directly from them.
Nice to
And
know.
another thing I'll talk about, so what you're talking about, the big Coke, is the reason you need something that big is you can hold 20 clutches in there, right?
That's
So
right. We kind
for
of went
anybody
up.
that, yeah, for people who don't have 20 clutches, who've got two or three, the small little wine bar fridge that is like, I don't know, 3 feet high and all that, they work amazing, especially if a glass window. You rip everything out the inside, and heck, you don't even need to remove all the freon or whatever is in there. Just unplug it and don't use it anymore, right? So you can just wrap
Absolutely.
around, and I used that for years before. The problem is you can only fit 2, 3, 4 clutches max. So for me, it wasn't enough. But a fridge is built insulated, right? It's built to keep the cold in. Keeping the cold in means it can keep the heat in too. So it's really really useful. Sorry, keep going.
No, absolutely. And so that's what happens, right? You grow out of those kind of things, right? So, like you said, you I grew out of that pretty quick. I'd have the wine cooler, and then I'd have to go back to the old school way and be like, all right, for the one clutch, I got to use this cool. So you'd have two incubators. So after a while, it's just like, it just makes sense to put it all together, make it nice and easy. Um, and then, and then after all that, so you hook up, I have two fans, two small fans on both sides to circulate the air. Um, you can plug those right in. That's what I do. And then the flex watt tape, you got to make sure you hook it up to. I usually hook it up to definitely a good herpostat. That's the way to do it. You don't want to screw with anything. If you're gonna value your clutches, don't. I mean, Inkbird is. I'm not coming down on anything because I have a lot of those still. A lot. Um, Great for the enclosure, and you know what, if it goes bad, it's 1 day of enclosure that the snake's going to be fine because you got ambient, unless it's wintertime. But I mean, overall, usually it's going to be good. But for a clutch, if you miss it for 6 hours and that thing goes off, I mean, you're done. So herpostat's the way to go. I feel like I've never had any problems. They never go bad. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah.
I'll add a bit on that. So if you look behind me, the cages are running the Ingbirds. Personally, I hate them. Okay, I'm gonna say it flat out. I don't
Mhm.
like Ingbirds. I've had my entire room on Ingbirds for a long time. They are inaccurate. They're good for ±2 degrees, which is perfectly fine for hot spots. It's
But
really
they
not a big
work.
deal. They work, but
Yeah.
they work until they don't, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we've
I get it.
I have had over 50 in my room at any given time, and they all have a lifespan of about a year to a year and a half, sometimes even 2 years, but they all die at one point. And when they die, they just literally stop working. So some of them will beep, some of them will give errors, and some of them will just stop working. So the problem is then you have a cage that loses their heat, which not a gigantic deal, but all I'm saying is that they suck. I don't know what else to say. Like, I wouldn't use them anymore, but if you look in my back cages, I still have them only because I've complained to the company and they give you all new ones to replace them. And then I started wearing the date on each of them whenever I would plug them in, and they all crap out at about a year to 2 years. 2 years is about the deadline for them. And I've been replacing all the ones that crap out with the new ones, and you can't really see it, but all the other rooms I've got. So if you look behind me, I've got huge stack of cages. I have 6 towers like that of cages. I'm down to only 2 towers left using Inkbirds. My other 4 towers are all on Herp stats now, and honestly, I would never go back to anything else than Herp stats. They are, in my opinion, the best, the most reliable, and if one probe breaks, you can just replace one probe. The whole thing isn't done, but it's really pricey. Herp stats aren't cheap. That's their downfall. They're expensive. You know, when you pay like $800 for a Herp stat 6, it sucks. But they're great. They're great. I'm not gonna. I don't know. I would advise against the Inkbirds, but for $35, they work. They will do the job. Just have a few on hand to replace when it breaks down.
Yeah, they're
So for
they're
the
good to have on hand for sure.
Yeah, they do. So for the eggs, for me, I've done all the different methods. I incubate only on water now. So, and what that means, and I also incubate in larger box. I tend to have all I think they're the 17 liters. So the containers that are much bigger, not the tiny little ones, purely because I believe that having more space in the egg box is a lot better for the eggs. So I incubate water. I'll put like an inch to an inch and a half of water. I'll add big sponges in there, and the sponges is really purely to stop the sloshing of the water and to lay the egg diffuser on top. So the sponges will stick out just a little bit out of the water. Egg diffuser. Sometimes I'll even put 2 layers of egg diffuser just to raise it a little bit higher. Put the eggs on top. Next thing is my eggs. I'll if they're all clumped up and there's like 2 or 3 eggs high, I'm gonna separate and just do it gently. They will come apart. And so this way I make sure that there's never an egg on top of another egg. So if the snake wants to get through, it doesn't have to go through 2 or 3 layers of eggs to get out, right? And as for the eggs in the containers, I used to have holes in all my containers. And as years have gone by, I've noticed that I don't actually need holes anymore. So I actually have only the holes that naturally are around the hinges of the lock clamps of the containers. So this is the small container. These are not the ones I would use. Actually, I use these for the pygmies. Gives you an idea of how big they are. But these little clamps here, there's holes on each side of them. And I don't use any other holes. But again, my egg boxes are big. So, and as you start leaving your eggs in there a longer amount of time, I will open them more and more. So initially, when the eggs are laid, I only open them once a week. And that just means like I open it, I take a quick look, and I close it, and then I'll do that once a week. But when I get to like day 45, day 40, I'll start opening it every 2 to 3 days. And you'll notice the eggs start breathing a lot more. They start using more oxygen. They start creating more condensation. And when you get to day 50, I'm pretty much opening them up once a day for 2 to 3 seconds. And I don't know if you do the same, Shan.
Uh, Sometimes. Last year at the end, I wasn't opening all the time. It just depends on the people with the incubator. So you have your incubator in your room. I don't have it in my room. I have it downstairs in the basement, in a much cooler area of the house. It's just a regular place in the house in the basement. It's out of the elements and everything. It heats up to everything, but that just causes less condensation. So that's the thing I fight with. So last year I lost a few clutches from that. Learned my lesson. So another thing that you mentioned, and yeah, so the one thing with the egg boxes, I use the same method as Dom, sponges, 2 diffusers, all the time, 2 diffusers, just in case sponges absorb too much and then kind of moisten the eggs. I always use 2 diffusers. Just gives it more. It's still getting more than enough of the condensation and the humidity in the egg box, so I never worry about that. It's just closing the egg box. I learned that last year. I lost a pretty most of the eggs out of a vital clutch, because I didn't have the container, just like the warping of the plastic. And so one of the end of the containers kind of had a little bit of a upper, and it was letting some of the air in, and that kind of ruined some of the eggs. It dried them out.
So one of
So
the things
the
I do
importance.
differently, yeah,
So
one of the
the
things I do different.
so go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead, go ahead. No,
So
you
the
go, Shan.
importance. So the importance I feel is just using like yeah, the straps. There you go. Absolutely, that's exactly what I use. Absolutely.
So
So
what
important.
So
So
what
important.
this is purely on some of those containers, they don't have a tight seal. So these are really double-sided Velcro straps, and literally it's like a belt. I wrap in two areas of the container. The clips are on the side, and I'm going to wrap them so that it really tightens the seal on each side, so it reduces the amount of air that goes from the inside of the container to the incubator. And the idea is, again, a more tighter seal, so you've got a lot less exchange. And I find that this just keeps a lot less air movement in and out, and you tend to have less drying of the eggs and a lot more higher humidity in the boxes. So these are like, honestly, ever since I did this, these little, you can go buy like, I think it's like 10 meters of Velcro for like $30, and I just have them all and I wrap all my cages. And another thing to note, so Shan has his incubator in a colder room. I have my incubator inside my snake room. So the incubator is in a, it's 79 ambient, right? So when I open the door, it's not as big of a deal. But you'll notice that when you get condensation in your tubs, you always get condensation on the front of your tubs that are facing the window. And the reason for that is that if you have a glass window, the glass window is not properly insulated compared to all the sides. So the front of the egg box will often be colder than the back purely because it's facing the window. Things you can do differently is either push the container further towards the back, or simply be aware that it's like that. It's normal for the front of the tub, the front 2 inches, to have a little bit of condensation in it. So it's just something to note. And lastly, another thing that I do is that water is a buffer. So what I mean a buffing system is that the more water you have in an incubator, the more stable your temperatures are. So the idea is that water keeps its temperature very, very stable for a very long time. So in the bottom of my container, I'll often have like a gigantic bin of water, and I'll have probably, like, I don't know, 60 liters of water sitting in a big bucket at the bottom, purely because the incubator will warm up that water. That water will warm up to the 88. And then even if I was to lose power, that water will stay that temperature for hours and hours and hours. And it's really good for having a stable temperature incubator. So I don't know if you knew you do that too, but water in incubator is a really, really big thing. It really does keep temperature stable.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've done that numerous years. Um, Even in the old school incubators, what you used to do is use water bottles or pop bottles, and you tape them all up together, and you'd empty them out like if you drink whatever it was in it, and then you'd fill them up with regular tap water, close up the containers, and then tape them up together, and then put them underneath on top of the flex watt tape, and then put your diffuser on top, and like the box is perfect. Like it would keep a stable temperature. And so now I do the same thing as Dom. I put usually a tub of some sort, open tub, um, that just on. I just put pieces of wood on top of the flex watt tape on the bottom, and put this open tub of water on the bottom, and that just kind of creates that kind of stability in the incubator. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the next step now is as you get closer to hatch date. So the problem with the over the water incubation method is that when your snakes hatch, they land in water. So this is for me personally. As soon as I see one tiny little slit in an egg or anything like that, this is where I will take the incubation box out. I will drain 90% of the water, maybe leave just a little bit of water at the bottom, put tons of paper towel in there until it is very well soaked. So you might be able to slosh a little bit of water on top of the paper towel. That's how wet it is. Then I'll put maybe a light diffuser on top, and then I'll put the eggs back on top and then reseal it and reclose it. So the idea is that there's still a very high humidity, but if the once the baby gets out, they're not actually going for a swim, right? I've actually never had an animal drown, but I don't feel the need to find out. So that's one thing I do every single time when I know that one. And then the next part is it's all about cutting eggs. So a lot of people do the whole barbaric thing of, I need to know what I'm going to get and cut the whole top and all that kind of stuff. It's all ridiculous. That being said, I do cut every single one of my eggs, and I will always do it. I tend to do it if I see one egg that is pipping out by like 24 hours after. I am slitting every single eggs. And when I say I'm slitting every eggs, I'm simply taking the top of the egg and pinching it. Once you pinch it, you get a tiny little crease, and I take scissors and I just do one little chop. And I just chop off on that pinch, maybe, it'll be like an inch or 2 centimeters long, and just a little tiny line. I don't even do anything more than that, but you can see it. It's enough that when it unpinches, you have a clear exit from the top of the eggs. Okay, the egg tooth on the snakes, they lose them all the time. So if you want to, you're okay with losing 5% of your babies every year to egg tooth that have fallen. They pierce holes, don't actually make it through. They lose their egg tooth, they drown. Right. So this is just one of those things where, in my opinion, it's very easy to increase the amount of eggs you're actually going to hatch out. Just cut the tiny top. You don't need to do anything big, and give the animals time to get out. Some will take 3, 4 days to get out. Some are just slow. But when everybody's out except one and he's taking an extra 2 or 3 days, start wondering why. That's usually when it's either going to be kinked, it's either going to be deformed, it's either going to have an issue often. That's when often I've noticed that when one takes 3, 4, 5 times longer than the others, there's often a problem. Then once you start looking into it and you're like, ee. But they tend to, what do you think, 2, 3 days on average to get out? Shen?
Yeah,
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's about right. But yeah, you're totally correct. You don't really need a big window. You don't need to go digging in there. They'll come out when they come out. You've given them that access to get out because if they lose the egg tooth, exactly. Um, and yeah, like start wondering what's going on. If everybody's out, that one egg, like you said, something's not right with that animal. Then go inspect that and see what's going on. Make that judgment call after that.
Yeah, and keep in mind that that egg yolk, the reason they stay in there, they absorb it, right? That's their first meal. Okay, so pulling out that animal or anything like that is just it's just plain dumb. You're an idiot. Don't
And
do it. Give them a
you're
chance
you're
to soak up and eat.
you're breaking the veins and everything hooked up to the snake when you're doing that. Um, either by cutting or putting fingers in there. So just leave it. Leave the snake. Leave the snake do its thing. Um, it'll be magical in its own.
Agreed. So after that, I guess let the snakes come out. Once they all get out, there's different views. Some people like to just leave them in the incubator for a couple of days. Some people like to separate them right away. Some people like to leave them in there all the way until they've had their first shed. Everybody does it slightly different. Me, I tend to, once there's a good 10, 15 of them out, whatever, even if there's 50% of the clutch, if I have time, I'll take those out. I'll start not probing them, popping them all, and I like to separate the males from the females when they're newborn. Popping is so easy. I mean, they've got no muscle tones. You can just give a very light. If you don't know how to pop, find somebody who does. Let him show you. It's pretty simple. Is it accurate? I'd say 90% of the time it's accurate. You can get a pretty good idea. So I tend to separate all the males, the females, and start housing them all into just regular little 6 squirts baby tubs, and kind of go from there. And eventually they all hatch out. You house them all, and then you leave them alone. You give them some heat, leave them alone. Wait until they have their first shed. Then after their first shed, I'll usually wait a day or two, and then that's when I'll usually start the feeding trials. Same thing for you, Shen.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I would say the same thing. Um,
Yeah.
so
Do you
for
take
me,
yours out right away, or do you leave
so
them in the incubator?
so when I start seeing them pipping, I see one. I'll wait around 24 hours, and then if anybody else pips, um, good. If not, I'll start slitting the eggs a little bit, make sure everybody comes out, and then I'll wait till they come out just a little bit more. And then, like I said, I'll do the same thing as you: empty out the whole container, get everything prepped, get them all ready, put a little bowl of water, and then leave them alone, and they'll all come out. And then I wait till they all come out, and usually that becomes a weekend where I have a little bit more time because it takes a long time. Like you got 20 new babies now that you gotta put new paper, you gotta write what they are, sex them, then put them in the rack, right? And you need enough time to do that, right? So yeah, it's not that easy. Um, just you need the time to do it, right? So usually it's a weekend, and then you set everybody up, and then you probe and not probe but pop them, and then get them going. And then, like you said, I usually wait a week till they shed. Some of them won't shed right away, though. I've noticed that, but I usually wait a good week. If nothing happens, then I'll offer food. I'll offer different types of food. Um, Depending on the type, usually like talking about carpets, some snakes are really easy to feed, and some you're gonna have challenges. Um, albino stuff is challenging. I've had some of the caramel stuff that we had in the past was pretty challenging. Some a few times the tiger stuff was a little challenging. But overall, jungle, gelatins, IJs, really easy. First meal, you start getting him used to it. What I've been tending to do the last few years, I've been tending to getting you on this. So with having rats, I have I do mice, I do ASFs, so African soft furs, and I do regular rats. So the African soft furs, you find kind of like a 2 or 3 day old uh, pinky, for like a IJ Westpapuffin, sorry, um, with it just got a little bit of fur, and for some reason you throw that frozen thought in there, and they start eating, and it just gets them going a little bit, and then you try a pinky rat, and boom, and once they have that, they never see an ASF ever again. It's always rat pinky.
Yeah. So let me just show you guys. I don't know if you can actually see that here. Let me tilt it on the side. So these are our typical baby cages. They're just a little 6 quart bin, and you've got a bowl, you've got a hide, and you've got the heat on one spot, and kind of go in there. There's a lot of troubleshooting and a lot of different things that can be done for babies. And I don't want to go too much into details because I think we can probably do a show purely on how to feed babies completely one day, and I want to do that one day. So I'm going to kind of end it there for the babies, but I want to go back to the continuation of breeding. So the next part for breeding is now you've got a lot of females that just laid eggs. Okay, let's go back to that part. So they've laid eggs. So there's a couple of different train of thoughts. As a general rule, the girl's looking like shit. She's looking half dead. Her belly is completely sunken in on the inside. Take her out, give her a bath. Okay. Nice warm bath, test the water, put it between 84, 86, something like that. And just let her soak for 20 minutes, clean her out. During that time, empty her cage out, clean everything. Everything that would have had an egg touch, or if you have the egg box, just take it out. Like literally take it out, go clean it, put another one, so a different egg box. Basically, you want to remove all that scent of any type of eggs and all that, because you will have sometimes, if you don't, they're going to go and just like phantom incubate eggs. They're going to find the spot that they were there and just start coiling, and you'll see them shivering, and there's no eggs there. So you really need to like break break that mentality, or that I don't know how to say it. Anyway, words aren't coming to me. But you got to
No,
break their momentum of incubating, their desire, their physical need to incubate those eggs. They need to just accept they lost that clutch. You know what I mean? And remove all signs that it's there. And after that, I tend to just leave him alone, give him a week or two, and then feed him a tiny meal. Okay, don't go big again. Those animals have not eaten. I know some people who go big, but there's a couple of shows, podcasts that have aired before talking about the snake digestion. When a snake doesn't eat for a long time, especially pythons, it's mainly pythons, their digestive system shrinks to 10% of their growth. It is a lot of work to get it back to big. It is a lot of demand. Give them a tiny meal. Wait a week, let it poop, give it a medium meal. Wait a week, let it poop, then you can give it a big meal, right? Um, the other thing that are weird is that I've had really a weird occurrence. So after she lays, play with your animal, right? Put your hand on her belly and feel the whole inside and make sure it's empty, right? You actually want to go check and make sure there's no more eggs left in the oviduct. If there is, if you feel comfortable enough, you can handle with very gentle pressure and slowly kind of work it out. And usually it works very well. That being said, I've had females where I can feel a lump and I'm like, God damn it. And then I work it out and it takes a little while longer. And then she turns out that she poops this urate that's hard as a rock. And you're like, or she'll poop, right? And you're like, how is this even possible? She hasn't eaten in 4 or 5 months. But it's incredible what these females can do. They can literally have a piece of poop that stayed inside of them for 7 months, and they didn't go necrotic. It had zero effect on them. They just kept them in them, and they poop it out later, and it's just stayed in them for that long, right? So, yeah, do you do anything differently to take care of your females after, Shan?
so you hit it pretty much the same way as I do it. So very important. Once I take the female off, I take care of the eggs. I put the female back in there. But if you ever see your female, once you put her back in and the eggs aren't there, she's stressing out, man. Stressing out so bad. So get the eggs going. Do what you got to do with the eggs. Get them in the incubator, and then go take care of that female. Like Dom said, um, I usually use a tub or a tote of some sort, and I put a little bit of water. I wouldn't say lukewarm, like you know what I mean. Comfortable water, so not cold but not warm, just a little bit of warmness. You put your female in there, and I'm telling you, instantly these females will go drink. So many times they will drink. It's taken so much out of them the last 2 or 3 days of this pacing back and forth, and then having the eggs drop. I think it takes a lot out of these females. A lot of the times, as soon as I put them in the water, they freak out for a few minutes and realize, oh, it's water. And then they kind of calm down. If you have the right temperature of water, they'll calm down, they'll get in there, and they'll start drinking water. You'll see that hydration. So that I do exactly like Dom. And meanwhile, I'm cleaning the tank. And the importance of cleaning the tank is so important, because if you don't clean it properly, she'll just go back to the exact same thing she was doing before, pacing back and forth, trying to look for eggs. That's what they do. And you got to break them out of that habit. Some snakes will do the twitching. The twitching is it's a thing that snakes do to keep the warmth of the kind of like the temperature of the eggs. I presume that's somewhat the way to say it. So the only thing I do different, so once I've set up the full tank and everything's done, I'll put the snake back in. I might wait. I will wait usually 24 hours. So the next day, the day after that, maybe 2 days maximum, I will feed the snake, but it will be a very small meal. Very small. I don't really believe in, I'm not a like, big meals. Certain species I will feed really big. I've learned scrubs, apparently you're supposed to feed pretty bigger meals. Carpets I do feed sometimes big meals, but the importance of this meal, like you said, the stomach has been you know, diminished, and you just want to get it kick started, and you don't want any problems, because I feel if you probably give it a big meal, something's going to happen. Something's going to get stuck in there. You're going to cause other problems. Start with a small meal. Make sure your snake's all good. Once it's digest that, move up to the next meal, and then after that you should be okay. And then I usually keep with medium rats, depending on the type of snake and how big the snake is. I'll go with a medium meal. How's that, for that snake? And sometimes I'll do two medium meals instead of a big rat, I guess. I don't know why I do that, but I just do it. It's just the way it is, and usually that'll get the meat on the female. I'll do that for a few months, and then so heavy feeding coming off, because you want their weight back on. Like, it's so important to get the weight back on. Like Dom described, it's like a deflated balloon. It's pretty really. It looks really bad. It looks like the snake is on death. All the inside is like, it's all deflated, because that's where all the eggs were. And so getting that, and it takes a few weeks usually, and the snake just comes back and it starts getting some weight back on. But then you need that little bit extra weight. So that's why spring I kind of go a little heavy. And then around the summer months, I kind of like diminish. I still feed every 3 weeks, the adults, 3 weeks, 2.5. I still feed well if I'm going to breed the female. Males, once you've bred once, I kind of go lean on you. You'll have a meal. But then, come now this time of year, I kind of up it a little bit, getting ready for breeding season.
Yeah, and for the males, something to keep in mind is you tend to only start feeding them again as well when you start feeding the females. Once the eggs drop as well, you can start feeding your males. His job is done. But again, a proven breeder male, like their life sucks. There's
But
no if you
leaning
if
a lean male is so important, though.
exactly.
It's
So
so important.
a lean skinny, lean male. Like once they prove themselves to be a proven breeder, why give them a large rat? You know, just keep them comfortable. If it means once a month and feeding them a small or a medium rat, that's it. Feed 6, 7 times a year, and that's it. And that animal will, even if a female gets to 6 feet, 6.5, 7 feet, if that male stays at 4 feet and he's doing the job, it's perfect. There's no need to feed the crap out of them. The bigger the males, the fatter they are, the least they breed, the worse. A lean, long, skinny male works amazing. There's no need. Do not like still feed them, just don't feed them big meals. Like females, when I'm trying to get their meat back on after they've lost so much weight, I'm feeding them once every 2 weeks. And she might eat an adult rat, and the male will eat one small or medium rat once every 4 weeks instead of every 2 weeks, right? So it's kind of one of those things. The other thing I wanted to point, and at that point after that, the cycle restarts, right? You kind of get them there, and then you decide whether you breed them again next year, and so on. And that might be a yes, that might be a no. Some people are against the idea of breeding multiple times in a row. Some people say you need to give them years off or not. Um, that one's a tough one. In my opinion, you can breed them back to back if she's healthy and good enough to do it. If you have any reason to think that she's not in good enough a condition, no, you shouldn't breed her. But if she's completely back up, she's giving you all signs that she's ready and nice and perfectly healthy, and you would have never know that she bred the year before, that female will go. And if you don't breed her, there is a chance she's just going to lay slugs, so you might as well breed her. Um, anyway,
Well,
that's my
well,
kind
that
of thoughts.
that goes with what I said. The first thing when we first started tonight was assess your animals. So going back in the fall, right, when you're getting ready, before you start, assess your animals. Are they ready for this? Because your females are going to go through hell, right? And your males are going to go through hell because they're not going to eat for a long time. I mean, that's their right. I mean, like everybody says, we overfeed our animals. Yes, in regular nature and everything, they're not eating like they are here, right? Like we spoil them, right? Kind of, if you want to call it that, right? Um, And I think it does a lot of good to have that break, but it's still tough on the animal, like no matter how you look at it. So making sure your animal is good to go again is always the thing. So yes, you can go back to back, but does that mean you need to go back to back? Like you said, assess your animal. If that animal gives you any incline, you know, and you know, should you be
Yeah.
doing it?
So another big word of warning: if you want your animal to die, breed it. So that's the best thing that I can say. If you are trying to breed animals, bad things will happen. You are literally taking a risk with your animals. Now, will it always happen? No, but I promise you something bad will eventually happen. Okay. And what I mean by that is complications. Breeding is something that comes with a lot of risks. I have lost multiple females. Shan has as well. Of course, when you get 15, 20 clutches a year, you will have usually one problem a year. I think on average, we have about one problem a year. So sometimes it might be minor problems, sometimes it might be a big problem. And another thing is when you're cooling down the animals, if they have anything at all wrong with them, it will show as you lower the temperatures. You might, and like I've said it before, I'd say about out of 50, 60 animals that I cool down, almost every year I'll get one sniffle. I'll get one animal that after the cooling just comes back and he just doesn't look right. And sometimes that means you're pulling him right out of your whole breeding plans. He's done or she's done, right? But by cooling him down, you're lowering their ability to fight whatever it is that they're fighting at that time, right? Their immune system goes down. It's one of those things that if there is any animals that were healthy but were fighting something or were dealing with something very well, maybe as you lower it down to your 55, 60 degrees, that thing might come out as they're not fighting it, right? Reptiles use heat to increase the metabolism rate. You increase their metabolism rate, are they're fighting it, you decrease it, they have less of an ability to fight, which also, so there is that aspect. And the other aspect is a lot of people say, well, I don't bring my animals cooler and all that. Bringing your animals cool or down is really, really healthy for your animals. It is natural. It's something that should happen. Okay. By bringing them down for 4, 5, 6 months of the year, that entire time, you're lowering their basal metabolic, freak, sorry, my French is taking over. Metabolic, you know that big word, metabolic rate. Jesus Christ, I got it. Okay, you're lowering that, which only increases the longevity of life, right? So animals that tend to go colder last a lot longer. So if you were to take an animal and simply never cool it, let's say you took a diamond python, you never cooled it, that's what the diamond python syndrome was. Okay, you never cooled it, you kept the animal running on high intensity their whole life, they died at 7 or 8 years old instead of 30. You take carpet pythons, which do have a cooling season, most of them. If you don't cool them down, you're cutting their life in half. It is natural, it's normal. My entire room cools down. The cages you see right behind, those are all the yearlings. The yearlings go down from October 31st all the way until, you know, I don't know, February is when it starts getting back hot. And during that whole time, a yearling baby is not eating because it's cold. I'm not going to feed it. The only animals I do not cool is the first year. So the neonates born this year, I'll keep them in, I'll bring it down to like 86, 84 at night and back to 88, their hot spot during the day. So I'll cool them down a little bit, but not enough that it affects them, but enough that I can keep feeding them throughout because that's the only ones. But everything as of a yearling, I will bring down, I will cool them off, I will get them ready. And these animals live in my room like that their entire life. So by the time they hit the 3.5, 4.5 years, they're used to this cycle. They know it. They're already programmed to know the how the room works. And everybody's room is slightly different. You got to find how your room works, make it work. Don't buy an adult from somebody at 5 years old, bring it in your room, and then expect it to breed. It has no idea how your room works. It's set up for somebody else's room. You're a lot better with babies. Raise them up, get them used to it, then breed them. I think
Agree.
that's the end of
Yeah.
my rant.
No, no, you're totally right. You're totally right. I've bringing in animals to even like from your place to my place, even though we're similar, um, it took a long time with some of my snakes. It's just the way it is. The Angolians, perfect example. The first year I got them from your place, they didn't breed, and I'm like, "What's going on? What's going on?" Probably didn't have them as cold as you did. As soon as I cooled them down a little bit further down, boom, I hit. And then I cool down the other female, boom, I hit again. So um, I had that problem being upstairs. It was too warm. Um, but apart from that, now that I have it in the basement, just a little bit cooler. And like you said, different rooms, different places. The snake needs to acclimate to whatever room they're in. So people that say that didn't work and then they go change it and then um, they they see that doesn't work and they change it again. That's not good either. I think try to
Animal
do
never gets used to it.
right. Exactly. They don't. Um,
Yeah.
Getting that animal cycled in. So that's the thing that you say all the time is getting that year just from a yearling. 1-2 years of that cycling in. It knows the routine of that room that it's in. So if you keep that the way it is, it's just that's how it just becomes acclimated to that room.
100% agree. So, breeding wise, Shan, is there anything you think we didn't really hit, or because I'm probably gonna start closing out the show unless there's other things you think we've missed?
Well, what we're gonna do this year, I mean, that's about it.
All right. Well,
I don't know if you want to do that or not, but that's just a thought.
it's
I mean, it's
getting
pretty
late, but
quick. It's pretty
it's
quick.
getting
I'm
late.
sure
But go for it. You tell me.
we can be pretty quick.
All right, go for it.
Well, I got the spotteds this year.
Okay.
I got the warmas.
Yep.
Um, I don't know if I'm gonna do Brettles again. If I'm gonna do them, I might do. We'll see. That's a possibility. I'm not sure. Um, Diamonds with you is a possibility.
Hey,
Um,
stick to yours. I'll talk about mine after.
no, but it's a possibility,
Oh,
right?
that's true.
Co-partnering.
Yep.
Not my stuff, but uh, Bonnie's gonna Ocelot Jungle female, her sister Nugget. I'll probably do them too. I got a 50% German line female from you. Beautiful snake. Female. She's good to go. She's gonna go. I'm probably gonna breed that one. I'm probably gonna breed it to um I don't know, maybe the super. I have a super or I have an ocelot zebra male, and he's pretty hot. He's a 2020, produced by Bonnie. I also have a female jungle, just a regular ocelot jungle. She's very striped. Um, Beautiful snake. She's up for size. So jungle heavy this year. So I don't know. I think I'm probably gonna breed her to the ocelot zebra male, the new guy. We're gonna retire the NBK, so the father like would be the grandfather now. He's gonna be retired. I have him. I'm probably not gonna use him. He's
I
been
was gonna say. I
steady
thought we
male.
officially were stopping to use him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
This year we're not using them. I'm gonna stick it out like you are. I have two males, and I'm just gonna stick it out. Hopefully it works. These two males, there are three. Well, more than that. I think that he's a 20, no 2023. So he'll be three, and the
Yeah,
other
you
one will
should be
be
good.
the other one's three also. So they'll be good. Um, yeah, last year I don't think they did very well. I think I put the male like really early. I put the male in, and he was just hiding in a corner. He just didn't know what to do. That female is way too big for
Nice.
Um,
Still Bredleys? You
I
breeding
don't
the
know.
Bredleys, or
I don't know yet if I'm going to do them or not. Um,
might give them the year off?
yeah, I
Okay.
almost sold this week. I almost sold the Exantic 66% het granite with the last male granite that I have here. I was going to pair them off. I was going to do the whole back thing, and it didn't work out that way. I think he's picking up the male tomorrow, so that's
Nice.
pretty cool. I'm getting rid of that male. Nothing wrong with them. It's just I don't need them. I've got all kinds of other stuff. Um, so if that female doesn't go, I'm gonna partner up with your with one of your males.
Yep.
Then I have some of the two tiger female, two caramel soup like super caramel tigers that you produce that you gave me, and they're almost ready, and they'll probably go back to you. Um, but yeah,
Uh,
if I go ahead,
I was gonna say I think those ones we want to pair up with the Exantic Super Caramel because I think that would give a nice pair in there.
yeah, yeah. So for sure that ivories, that's a for sure. That's definitely. I need to get that clutch. I need to
Yep.
get another established clutch.
The
Um,
Jolatons again?
no,
No,
I
you're
saw
thinking that's the year off?
I sold one tonight, eh? By the way,
Oh, really? Good job.
believe it or not, Brendan, hear this out. I sold one. um, but yeah, no. So Cody, there, the guy that bought a few snakes off of us, really likes our show. Kind of said, hey, he's like, I really liked your both of your podcast because I guess the last one came out. So he was
Nice.
and then we just started talking, and then he's just like really interested in the gelatins, and I'm like, he's like, how about I just pay you for it and blah blah blah, and you pick one really fantastic one for me, and I'm like, all right,
That's a good
sure.
deal.
And then fucking instantly I got paid for it, and I'm like, all right, man, no problems, I'll add it to the list. So pretty cool,
Perfect. Yeah,
pretty
he's
cool.
picking up a few from both of us.
Yeah, so
Anything
pretty
else?
awesome. Um, I say the warmers. Yeah, the warmers. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna go cold. Um, I'm almost ready to go. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
change it up.
And
I'm not
obviously
gonna
your
change
gray
it up.
bands
Just
again.
cold. Yes, they're actually doing really well. I was
Yeah.
wondering about
Good.
breeding them again, and because I was like, well, they're probably not gonna sell, but they're eating really well, and I've got all kinds of people wanting them, so I think I'm gonna do really really well. And I tell you the truth, they're probably the easiest things ever. Okay, so
Yeah.
in like a month from now, I'm gonna take him out of this room. I'm gonna throw him in my like in the basement for another month, just on. I sit them on styrofoam in a tote, um, and I just sit them in that room. No heat, no nothing, with the towel on top so they can't see it's dark. And then from there, I put them in my pantry. I have a pantry. And in that pantry, it's the side walls of the house. So when it gets cold, it is friggin' cold. Recorded temperatures in there at certain points last year. I definitely went to the low 50s to probably high 40s. And I did that for a good month and a half, 2 months in there, still on styrofoam, so not right on the ground. Towel. So when we went into the pantry, there wasn't light, so it was always dark. And then just reversed it. Just as soon as it went 2 months, threw them back on the freezer, let them accustom, let them out for a week, and then threw them back in my room to the regular heat without any heat. And then I started feeding them, and then I paired them, and then
Yeah.
the eggs, like I said, Michael, even you, and a few people just said stick them up on top of a rack. It took a little longer to incubate, but they all hatched. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah, I think they're really cool, and I think I've told you that before, but I haven't kept a colubrid in, geez, 20 plus years. the day you breed your 9 mile locality, or is it 8 mile? Or no, it's 9 mile.
9 mile.
9 mile locality gray bands. I'm gonna get colored birds again. They're gorgeous. I love the look of them. So yeah,
Um,
for sure.
Next time you come over, you got to check those out. They've grown so much. They're doing really well. I would say another year or so. I'm really gonna. They're gonna go pretty. They're gonna go quick now, right? Now that they're a
Nice.
little bit bigger. No more feeding them with the small stuff, and they're just always eating. Like that female is a garbage can.
That's awesome.
How
All
about
right.
you?
Well, on my side, I've got 1.2 inlands this year. Male Schofield, female is Mog, and the other one is Schofield slash different lineage from Europe. I do have my 1.1 of diamonds. My male almost died. Thought he was going to die. Seems like he's recuperated. And I actually tried to. So, yesterday, actually, not yesterday, this week, I was feeding everything. And he was right on the glass, like surfing, waiting to be fed. I gave him a hopper rat, which is freaking tiny. He's an adult male. He ate it, but his head is all fucked up. Like he ripped the top of his head and the bottom, but he ate. So it kind of gives me an idea that, you know what, he's now survived 6 weeks past his injury, and I fed him for the first time a
There's hope.
tiny, tiny
There's
meal. There
hope.
is hope. I actually am starting to think he's gonna. I'm starting to think he might make it. His head's going to be scarred to crap, but he's gorgeous. Like he's a green male. He's just gorgeous. So it would be that male to the RPD female, reduced pattern female, or if that male's not ready, we're gonna bring in your male, and that's going to be the breeding partner. So there's that. Then there's I got a 1.2 Ruffy. Pretty excited for that. Never tried to breed him yet, and they are definitely ready this year. I've got 1.2 pygmies, so those are repeat. I've done those multiple years now in a row, and I will keep doing it because they're really healthy and doing really well. I've got jungles, a lot of jungles. I think this year I'm going to breed 2.3. I do have a pair of 1.1s that are super zebras, so I'm kind of excited about that. And they're both from ocelot parents, so should be interesting. I've never done super zebra to super zebra, so I'm expecting a disaster clutch, but we shall see. I want to try it. Super zebra to super zebra is very rarely done. I don't even know of anybody who's done it. Do you? Like, I don't think it's. I think it's really, really rare.
Nick's done it, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, I was gonna do it, but I lost one of my females.
Oh,
Um, so this year, though, I'm doing zebra, super zebra to zebra. I mean, I know that's not. Eventually, I'll probably
that's
do super zebra to super zebra, but
I just I just
I'm
have to
not
try it. I
there.
want to try it once. You know what?
Yeah,
I just want to see what to expect. So I'm definitely doing that. I've got 2.3 pop wins. One of the pairing has finally proved out the hets, and I've produced two marbles last year and two marbles the year before. Um, my marbles are growing up. I've held back 1.2 marbles, and the females are now 2 years old, so they're not ready this year, but they will be soon. And shipping out one of my males to Shan. So still will be going for the marble project, and in time, all the other ones that are hets and all that kind of stuff will move away. So I've got that, and then I've got my coastal projects. So coastal projects, the my super caramel axe will probably go to some of your females because you've got some, and he's being benched here. He will not be touching a girl again for the second year in a row, and I'm again going to be trying my super hypo tiger. So that'll be my male of the year, and I'm hoping he's going to get some girls pregnant. So he's going to be paired up to a hypo caramel tiger and an exantic. So hoping. I think in total I've got I don't know about 15 pairs. I expect probably 10 to 12 pairs usually is the amount that'll go. So I don't know about you. My goal is about 100 eggs a year. I hate having more than 100 eggs. 100 eggs is like I'm overwhelmed and it's too much. So 80 is a great number.
this year
60
was
is an easy
overwhelming.
number. Yeah, you
This
had
year
what,
was a
like
little
100 and
overwhelming.
some?
It was a
Would
lot.
you had
I
130?
Yeah, somewhere around the 130, and
Yeah,
then
it's
not
insane.
that's not counting the gray bands. I think I had more than that. I had almost 150 with the gray band stuff. It was crazy,
Yeah,
man.
too much, too much.
Too
Like
much.
you have a real
Um,
job, right? Like you work full time and everything like
yeah,
that. Well, you snake breeding is a hobby for us. It's not to make money. So yeah,
yeah, that, and then you got the rats to take care of, and then we both have lives, and we both have families, and just think of that. On top of that, it's just we we dedicate a lot of time to our animals. I do anyway. Usually my weekends go to my animals. Saturday is my off time a little bit. Um, polish up on a few things and then go do stuff around the house. Extra projects is like, sometimes it's hard to do when you got that much. I was overwhelmed this year for sure. Not able to do other things like animal care was good, but like there was no way I was gonna go build something. I just didn't have the time to do that this year.
yeah,
Um,
I hear you. So
yeah,
yeah, I my ideal number is 80. 100 I can tolerate. Over 100, I had one year that I had 130, and I didn't like it. I stressed out. It was way too much. Baby season is way too busy, and I ended up wholesaling a lot for really cheap, really fast because I needed to move them. It was too much. And usually I always go by how many babies I have left, the years before. And I think we've sold out every year so far. Do you agree? I think we've never had any real babies left
yeah,
over from the year prior. So
but I
this year
think
might be different.
yeah, it might be a little different this year.
So
Who knows? I mean, it'll be close. I don't know how much you have left. I still have quite a bit left. I have
yeah,
quite a
no,
bit left. I
I
can't say
produced
it.
way less than you this year. So I'm down to about a dozen animals left. That's it.
Yeah, I got lots more.
So yeah, you probably have about
Reach
40.
out to anybody who wants some snakes. I have some. But yeah, no, for sure. And that's why I said I don't know if I'm going to do the Brettles because first of all, they're hard to start. Once I get them started, by the time I get them started, like I'm going to pretty much be cycling. I don't know. I don't know if I want to get stuck with that first of all, and if I'm going to have any left over. Um, I don't want to sell them soup. Like I don't want to saturate the market too much either, right? Um, I think I might do. So one female I haven't bred, so I'd like to breed her because she's really red, and she'd be to a het, not to a het, to a stripe, genetic stripe, Brettles. But I'd like to do the pairing again of my het genetic stripe female to my genetic stripe male. I only got two really nice stripe ones, but they were both males, and I want a female. That's the one thing. After that, I'll probably kind of get out of that project, or maybe you know I'll get rid of the female, or eventually I don't know. I might just get rid of the pair. I am keeping a male back from this year because they are really nice, and I might get rid of them. I don't know. Uh, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I hear you. All right. Well, on that token, I think we've gone from the start to the end of the Python breeding. Kind of a fun show, last minute thing. Shan, I appreciate you coming on. And I'm going to say it. You know what? Compared to the first time you did a podcast and now your third podcast in a row, you rock, buddy. You really are a
Yeah,
lot more comfortable. You did really good on this one.
yeah. I was very nervous the first time
Oh,
around. I was like,
I
"Yes,
know.
sir." Blah blah. I feel a lot more comfortable. I just want to thank you and Michael for everything and having me on,
Of course, man.
giving me this opportunity. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then the people reaching out to me for just no apparent reason. I just never thought. Right? It's just like, hey. So it's pretty cool. I like it. Thank you,
So
everyone.
why don't you plug your information there? How people
Uh,
how can anyone
so,
reach you?
so I'm pretty simple. So Shan Melanson, nothing fancy. Usually Facebook Messenger. I answer. I do Instagram. I do have all that stuff. It's just uh, seeing a message on Instagram. Sometimes I might not reply right away because I'm not that tech savvy, guys. Sorry. But definitely the Facebook stuff. You see the post. We have the Facebook groups, but Shan Melanson Messenger. Snake Frenzy. I do have like some Facebook thing on there, and I do check it once in a while, but nothing fancy. It's still in the works. That's my main plug.
Very nice. For myself, Dominic Carbonneau on Facebook or Instagram is Dom's Reptiles. Website is Dom's Reptiles, but again, I don't update anything. It just has my contact information and what you can reach, and pictures of what my collection used to look like 5 years ago, which is really not representative of what it is now. But you're welcome to go take a look. Reach out to me. For Michael Gillian, which is not here, it's just Michael Gillian on Facebook. Reach out to him. He should be here next week. I'm pretty sure I know who our guest is next week, but you guys can find out next week. That being said, for Reptile Rejects, you want to reach out to us, again, Reptile Rejects on Instagram, and wherever you're listening to this. If you're on YouTube, please click like, please click subscribe. It somehow helps. If you're listening to it on a podcast anywhere else, subscribe, man. Make us grow in numbers nice and slowly. I thank everybody for joining. I thank everybody for listening. I apologize you had to see our ugly mugs and listen to us for this amount of time, but we appreciate it. So, to everybody, have a good night, and we will see you next week. Take care, guys.
Thanks, everyone.